What's up, Matt from Fab here. In today's video we've got Pinto race engine building tips with Steve Evans for the first half of the video, and then I head over to Burton Power to meet up with Steve and collect the engine.
Yay, we're back. Right, Mr. Fab Cinderhead is back from Mr. Vulcan, and what Mr. Vulcan done is he's put some bronze guides in, which you can see I pushed up out of the way. Now, a lot of people ask me, why do you do that? Why do you put the bronze guides in and have dummy seats cut before doing all the work? If you cut the seats from the original guides and the guides are worn or aren't quite cock on central where we want them, now your seat can be a couple of fair either way, which is enough to cause any minor issues. So what Steve does is he puts the bronze guides in for me first, then he pushes them right back so they're not going to interfere with my porting. As I say, then it will go back, have 3 angle seats cut, and then I'll do the final little tiny blending just in here. Right, I'm back already. So about an hour in and one exhaust port is done. So try not to show too much and give too much away, but we've got our special port sizing cut down valve, kindly from Mr. Vulcan. I think I'm the only person he's ever given one of these to, so thank you, Steve. And the idea is to make that go in the port and go all the way through, which it does. Of course it won't do that when the guide's pushed back into place, but that's what it's supposed to do. Now 3 more to go. Yep, they do. Exhaust side is all done. If you can see in there, it's all roughed out. And what I mean by roughed out is it's only done with the burr, and I'll then finish it off with a stone and then the trusty Dremel, and I'll just use these little sanding drums, which you get through quite a few of those. But yeah, that's what I'm up to. So it's cooled down a little bit, I've got to get on. Right, continuing on, I'm going to show you, well, I've got to really. Don't look the prettiest, but they're not finished. And I'm just doing the same with the inlets. I'm just roughing them out. Again, I'm using my super aggressive carbide burr that Mr. Vulcan gave me. If it'll focus on it, there it is. I use that one, and I use these ones from Temu. Quite good actually, to be honest. And so I'm just roughing the inlet ports out, and all I'm doing is taking that guide boss completely out of the way, and where you can see Steve has machined the dummy seats, and then he's run his cutter down just far enough, and then all I'm doing is I'm blending the rest of the port to this size up here. Remove the guide boss, and then with my turn down inlet valve, exhaust valve, sorry, this is an old Pinto Group 1 valve, it's slightly turned down. When that passes through, and it will come virtually all the way through, I'll know I've got my inlet port to what I class as my race spec size. So yeah, all the ports are roughed out. I'm just going to clean them up a bit with the old Dremel, and I'm also doing the chambers, and literally all I'm doing is I'm taking away this textured type finish, which there's lots of controversy about online. Some people will tell you it aids some cooling, it aids a bit of mixture, and others will say it creates hot spots. So what you can do is, this is just with 80 grit, and as you can see I've even slipped just here, but it doesn't matter because the head's going to get faced anyway. But yeah, so just even with an 80 grit, that's the sort of finish you can get. And yeah, that's what I do. We've got the Fab Pinto head back. Quick glance at that. Basically Mr. Vulcan's give it a once over, put the guides in, exhaust ports are all done, which he says are absolutely spot on. Inlets I was very cautious on, and just to give you an idea of how cautious I was, this is my port size. Sorry, this is Mr. Vulcan's port size. As you can see, there's a fair amount still to come out of that. Mr. Vulcan did one port, which is that one there, which as you can see, the calipers fit lovely. I'm just doing this one, and I'm almost there. So yeah, a little bit of a delay as such on things, but yeah, we get there, we get there. Keep rocking. All the seats are finished cuts now, and all I've got to do is, I don't know if you can see it, this little tiny edge that's just there, I've just got to blend that in now the final seat's cut. So tiny little bit to do there. Yeah, she's ready for assembly. Oh, she's going to be good, it's going to be good. Right, what I'm doing is install spring heights. Now, as we're running VS42 Kent Cam springs, I have an installed height of 37mm. So what you have to do is you have to put your spring cap on and then measure from under the spring cap to the spring base, and ideally you want that at 37mm, at least that's what Kent Cams recommend. It's not quite how I do it, but it'll give you an idea. So what we're doing at the moment is we've got these little platform shims, which I've got a box of in 10, 15 and 20 thous. That seems to cover most, and because we're running Cosworth stem seals, I'm having to use the little die grinder just to open these up so that they pop over the top. If you don't do that and you put these on first, what it will do is it will lift that stem steel up however much your spacers are, and sometimes they can be quite thick, and then what happens is the bottom of the spring cap or the collets can touch your little seal, and then the seal's ruined in 30 seconds, and then you've got smoke and all sorts of chaos. So I actually just make these holes a little bit bigger so that they pop on over the top and they don't affect that stem seal. Yeah, so let's get to it. Right, welcome back campers. Here we are back on Matt Urch Fab's track day hill climb spec Pinto. A little bit of a sort of a recap what we've done. I've polished all the webs of the crank. That went off to be balanced along with the flywheel, front pulley, belt drive, everything associated with that. We've got Cosy rods. They were balanced by and supplied by HT Racing. Thank you, Aaron. Lovely donation. We've got acrylite pistons, which were sponsored by Burton's, and they're all balanced. So the rotating assembly is done. Yeah, now what I'm about to do is I'm going to put a little front cover on, which just goes around here, and I'm using genuine Ford bolts. These came from Ford's. You might see my post about them. I've got a few thousand of those. So yeah, genuine bolts. And there's going to be a little tip on doing these seals. Really, if you're putting these seals in, they push in by hand. I use a little bit of copper slip round the sides and just push it in with your thumbs. If you need to press that in, there is something wrong. It's as simple as that. So yeah, next after that we're going to be doing sump, getting the sump on. Now I use two different types of gaskets. I use either this one that comes from Vulcan, which, if you know the Pintos, they have little wedges that go down in these corners, just there and down here. And my tip for that is, doesn't matter whether you're using this type that's got the wedges built in, or some of the gaskets come with little tiny wedges in the packet. Now what I'll do is I'll get some, this is my silicone sealant of choice. I'll put a dob of it in there, quite a bit, don't fill it right up, and quite a bit in that side. Then push your wedges in, and when you do, this silicone stuff will come out just at the back here. If it doesn't come out, you haven't put enough in. So splodge of silicone in there, put either the half moon seal on with the wedges. If you've got the separate wedges, when you push them in, you need to cut them down a bit with a scalpel, because they will sit quite a bit proud. They sit about 10mm up, so but it does vary a little bit. I also don't use any, some people use sealer on the gaskets. I do not. Don't use any sealer whatsoever, and I don't have any leak. As long as your surface is flat and clean, which Vulcan do all my machining, so it's always bang on the money. And if you're using an alley sump like we're using here, then it's the paper gasket. Okay, cork gasket is for tin sumps, paper gaskets is for the RS alley sump. Now I'm just going to give you a tip on this one. If you're putting a front cover on and a sump, make sure that this is flat here, because before you tighten all the bolts up, you can actually move this up and down a good couple of millimeters, obviously on both sides. But if you move one side up, it will move the other side down, so you've got to use a pair of hands and basically push evenly from both sides up or down, and that will get it nice and flat, and then you won't have any leaks from your gasket. Simple, isn't it, really? So right, sump is on, rear seal is on, and obviously the front half moon seal. Now I'm just going to show you, that's what you get. I don't know if you can quite see that. If I move around a little bit, you can see, I'm trying to hold this, you can see the silicone blob just there that's come out, and the blob just there that's come out. That means there's enough in there that's going to help seal that. So gasket's all in place. I'm just starting to put the lovely Burton power supplied bolts in. These you do not put washers on. They go in exactly as they are, plain, and I use a bit of normal thread lock. And they're only something like 7 foot-pounds of torque, so they don't need to be torqued up really tight. And then once I've done them, I put a little tiny white dot on. That means I've tightened everyone once. Now I'll go around this probably 2 or 3 times. You will find that as you clamp it down and you finish, if you go back to the first 2 bolts, they'll feel near loose, so you go through them all again until they all feel equal, and then I normally let it sit for just a couple of minutes and then do one final pass. So the original dot was at, say, 6 o'clock, and the new dot is at 3 o'clock. So you can see just how much some of the bolts have tightened compared to some of the others. Give that 10 minutes, and then the third one, and it's done, and turn her over. Okay guys, right, and ladies and saucepans or fridge freezers, whatever you might want to identify as. Next we're on to Matt's Dizzy, Mr. Urchfab's Dizzy. This has been to HT Racing. Aaron has modified the advance curve for us, and she's ready to go. I'm going to give her a good clean up obviously first, but just going to give you a little tip. This little locating hole that's there, that the lumination base plate fits in, which is that little jobby there, sometimes, just sometimes, this little nodule doesn't quite go in that hole that I'm trying to focus on. There we go. Right, so what you have to do is get a little drill bit and just take that out ever so tight. It's so tiny because the base plate doesn't sit down flush within the Dizzy. So that's just something to be aware, and then I'll show you something else when we've got that far.
Right, so as you can see, that's an amazing result out of the mighty Evans Power, Burton Power Ford Pinto, and that's exactly where Steve said it would be at 200 horsepower. So now it's time to make the long journey from Dorset to London to Burton Power to meet up with Steve. It's the first time I've seen Steve in person in over 10 years. I got to meet all the guys at Burton, met Andy, Mitch, I got a full tour of Burton Power and everything they got there. So after having a nose around the shop at all the awesome engines they've got on stands, I got to fully explore the underneath of Burton Power, because there's more of it underground than there is on top. So yeah, they don't actually build engines at Burton Power anymore. They just sell all the parts you would need to build whatever spec Ford engine that it is you're trying to put together. And underneath the shop is where they used to build all the engines, so it's all like machine shops and stuff down there, whereas now it's all the stores for all the parts that they keep. They've got a interesting storeroom that's kept locked, which is full of things that aren't for sale, like super rare motorsport items and just stuff that you could never get your hands on again. So it's pretty interesting to see some of that. And then there's just endless shelves and racking full of anything you could ever need for building engines, and anything for your fast forward, from pistons to like hose clamps and down to the real basic stuff. They've also got tons of old engine parts, Pinto heads, crossflow heads, engines stripped down for bits. There's just endless amounts of stock of old Ford engines. So if you're looking for any of that kind of stuff, then you know where to go. And there's still some old machines down there, and some bits of kit that they're using to break the engines up into parts. I had to do a bit of shopping while I was there to get all the bits I needed to make my 4-speed straight cut gearbox to the back of this Pinto. So I needed a clutch, bell housing, and then all the hydraulic slave cylinder parts as well. So whether you're looking for an exhaust system, set of carbs, or even just a couple of random bolts that have gone missing for something specific for your fast forward, then you know where to go. So massive thanks to Burton Power, and it's great to have a company with such a lot of history involved with my little classic Ford. Next up, quick stop at HT Racing and Vulcan Engineering, just to have a little nose around at the dyno and basically see where all the magic happens. This is John and his Mark 1 Fiesta that he's getting tuned on some throttle bodies, and this is the workshop, proper old school, no CNC machines or anything like that. And this is Aaron and Steve, and they are the brains behind all the manual equipment, and they both had quite a bit of input into my engine, so massive thanks to everyone that's got involved. But this guy has put this whole deal together by himself and got everyone involved off his own back, so can't say thanks enough to Steve. He's built a whole load of these 200 horsepower race engines as well as road engines, and he's got a selection of engines pre-built sat in his front room, which many of them are for sale, so give him a shout if you're on the lookout for a Pinto engine. Right, so I'm just getting hydraulic slave cylinder sorted out, and this is quite a nice little setup actually. I just took this off to check that I had put some sealer on these bolts, because these bolt holes go straight through into the casing, so if you don't seal the bolts in, you just piss oil out through the bolts and into the bell housing. Ask me how I know that. So yeah, I just use a bit of blue Hylamar, seal them in, and hopefully we won't have any leaks. So this is the slave cylinder, which sits straight on there, and you have to basically set the spacing from the release bearing to the back of the clutch forks, and you need between 4 and 6 mil of clearance. So this spacer from Burton's was 30 mil thick. So I had to turn that all the way down to 11mm, and then it's got a locating like ridge there which locates in the box like that, and then the slave locates into that ridge on the back of there, so that can be bolted in. Inlet and outlet for the hoses, so I need to drill some holes in the box for the hoses to come out of. And yeah, basically just worked it out by putting a straight edge across there, taking a measurement from there, and then doing the same on the back of the engine. So I've got my clutch bolted on, and I put a straight edge across the back of here, and then measured to the gearbox face where it mounts here. Well, that's the hoses in. Simplest way was just to come out the back there. That's the bleed, so I'll just make a little bracket somewhere for that to sit. I did kind of want to like drill it through and put it in there, but it sort of forces the hoses out this way, and I don't want to risk anything ever catching on the clutch, so I think the safest way is just to bring as much of it out as possible. That's going to have to go up to the master, and I'll have to make some sort of adapter to fit that to the existing one. But that is basically ready to bolt up to the engine now.